Welcome to the fourth of 5 videos from the Roman Army 2021 lecture on sources. And in this fourth video, or the second of 3, second section, I want to say just a few things on Dura Europos. Okay. So, get rid of my head and bring this up. Okay, so Dura Europos is a place in Syria. It changed hands many times. It was a Hellenistic kingdom. It was Seleucids, sort of Parthian, Eastern Persian Empire, and then it came under Rome, and then here in the middle of the 3rd century, the Persians came and destroyed it while it was held by the Romans. This site is important because of the fantastic evidence that has been uncovered from it over a number of years, but a lot of stuff took place in the early 20th century, and some of the material is now in New Haven, Connecticut at the Yale Museum. And in recent years, 10, 20 years, the site has been the subject of much debate. It also suffered in some of the recent conflict in the Middle East. Now, we know it is important for military things because there were military units based at Dura Europos. Its life or its history came to an end, or its history, so to speak, came to an end because it was sacked by the Persians around 251, give or take, CE. But it's also significant because our only evidence is what was found on site. Okay, we don't have a literary account like Ammianus describing its end. Now, you can probably imagine that scene where I read out where Ammianus himself describes the fall of Amida, which is, in the same part of the world, and he fled into the countryside. You can imagine similar scenes taking place here, the same context. Romans being besieged by Sasanian Persians. Now, the site wasn't occupied afterward, which is part of the reason why it's been well preserved. And as I said, the finds are amazing. There are things like these incredible frescoes, one of our best depictions of soldiers from this part of Roman history, the High Empire into the Late Empire. Here you can see they're not wearing the equipment that we saw on the Trajan's column. There are tunics and cloaks, and some trousers, possibly hats, and there's a standard too. There's also, of course, there's non-military things in Dura Europos. The oldest house church is from Dura Europos. But also all sorts of other things, as I say, specifically related to the conflict itself that brought its life to an end. There's some graffiti, and I use this in the book. It shows it better in the digital than in the print one. And seems to illustrate some heavily armored Persian cavalrymen. The idea is people on the inside are looking out, and there's the Persians attacking the city. They get spare time. Oh yeah, they're heavily armed. They have these oven men, have their horses covered with scale, and the soldiers too, pointy hats and lances. Okay, so idle activities while a city is being attacked. And then there's all sorts of wonderful equipment too, and some of the best preserved of any kind. So parts of shields, as you see here, and various arms and armor and equipment from Roman soldiers and Persian ones too, scattered in and around the site. And much of this has been published by Simon James at Leicester. He's done some amazing stuff. Go look him up. Yeah. Okay, now one of the most interesting things in many respects makes it unusual, at least at this current moment in Roman military studies, is we have here the physical evidence for a battle that took place in which the Romans were involved. So we know the Romans were involved in lots of battles, and I talked about the literary evidence, and I gave you some, a bit from Ammianus and Caesar and Tacitus and various other historians, etc. And so we know a lot about some of the details of battles and sieges, open battles, soldiers in the plain, attacks on cities, and the like, but we know less. We often don't have, we might know where the battlefield was, but we often have no evidence of the battles themselves, in part because a lot of battlefields get fought over many times. Some places, like Adrianople, is the site of many different battles in history. In some cases, at the end of the battle, bodies were burned, and there was no physical evidence of the human remains. Any other remains, equipment, armor might have been taken away by the winning side, the losing side, or both. And sometimes we don't know where the battlefields were. So here we have this evidence which is quite remarkable. And one of the most amazing things, and I'll come back to it in another context, is the activity at Tower 19 at Dura Europos, which you can see we have what is here a Persian guy and a bunch of Roman guys. And one thing you might do to try to get across the walls of a city, you might try to go over it, you might try to go through the walls, you might try to go under the walls. In this case, the Persians attempted to go under the walls of Dura Europos. The Romans sent out a course to intercept, and the two sides found out, and then everything was brought down, possibly with some chemical warfare. Again, there's a great article. Simon James. Anyway, a place like Dura Europos is great because it provides all this varied evidence from the excavation. So we have the human remains of the fallen, we have arms, we have equipment, we have structures. The site is still reasonably well preserved. The buildings, we know more about where they were living because we know soldiers were living there, interacting with the community. There's also papyri has been found here as well, just like in Egypt, which a lot of it has to do with the running of this, or some of the military units here. And we have some art as well. So it's another rich and varied site for evidence on the Roman military, especially at war, but also in the day-to-day too, which is what the final video we'll get into for Vindolanda. Bye for now.